as you see that your thoughts are feeding that spiral, you can step back and just watch them as thoughts that appear and disappear in the field of the mind. Again, the image of the clouds coming and going in the sky. If you see yourself as the sky and not as the little storm of fear, then the sky can hold the fear thought and it doesn't produce more fear. So it short circuits the fear, and you can feel much more in touch with greater equilibrium, a greater sense of balance. And the storm goes away, and then it's okay. So we teach people how to ride out the waves of their own emotional storms without unnecessarily feeding them. There's a tremendous amount to be learned from that. And what you learn usually is you're not your fear. You're not your pain.
Yes.
You're much larger than that. So then that provides elements of freedom right then and there. The learning isn't head learning. It's like you've eaten it. You've digested it. It's become part of you. So you know it in a way that no one can take away from you. It's not theoretical knowledge. And then the next time you're in a frightening situation, many situations are very, very frightening. So it's not like fear is bad, or even being terrified is bad, or being angry is bad. Many appropriate situations in which to be angry. How you use that energy makes a huge difference, though, in whether it eats away at you on the inside, as fear can do, or as anger can do, or as depression can do, or whether you can use these energies to grow by working against the energy itself, but not against, but by working with the energy itself, almost as if you were working with weights or with rubber bands that, have some tension, and you stretch against them and your body grows. In the same way, we're cultivating flexibility and strength and balance of mind. It's like an inner yoga, and you use your emotions as kind of opportunities to stretch yourself and to grow. That actually taps into a dimension that's called emotional intelligence. And for instance, if you want your children to learn how to be more emotionally intentional, more emotionally intelligent, it's not a bad idea for you to embody it yourself, because they learn more from the way we are than from what we say.
Yes.
It turns out that we've done some brain studies that actually show that when people go through our 8-week program, that there's a particular area of the brain that is stimulated through the meditation practice.
Very interesting.
And it's called the left prefrontal cortical area. It's this region over here of the cerebral cortex on the left side, and that is associated with positive emotions and happiness, and with effectively responding to negative emotions when you're under severe stress.
Very interesting.
So we randomize people between two conditions. One is they get the 8-week program. This is at work, by the way, not in the hospital. We did it in a bioengineering company in the United States. People agreed to come into a laboratory and be wired up to do electroencephalography and cardiography,
like a
and
biofeedback machine.
lots of different, more sophisticated
More
than
sophisticated.
biofeedback. And we would stress them while they were wired up. And they came 3 times, before they took the 8-week program, after they took the 8-week program, and 4 months after they finished the 8-week program. So it's very stressful to go into the laboratory, but these people volunteered to do it. Some of them got the 8-week program first, but everybody had to come into the laboratory. And then the other group got the 8-week program when the whole study was over. And what we found was that the meditators had a stronger stimulation of the left prefrontal cortical area that is indicative of handling negative emotions more effectively under stress. And the non-meditators did not show that. Then we also gave everybody an injection, a vaccination with the influenza vaccine at the end of the 8 weeks, both the control group and the experimental group. And then we measured their antibodies to the flu vaccine at 5 weeks later and at 9 weeks later. And what we found was that the meditation group showed a much stronger antibody response than the non-meditators.
Interesting.
So the immune system was stimulated, and also this part of the brain. And then when we plotted the brain change versus the immune change, what we find is that there's a a linear relationship. The people that showed the strongest changes in the brain, in the left prefrontal cortical area, showed the strongest antibody responses to the flu vaccine.
So they have a
So there's some
immune
relationship.
system.
There's a relationship between the nervous system in the meditators and the immune system that is leading to a stronger, more robust immune response. It's only one study. We are, but we're very excited about this. I did this in collaboration with Dr. Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin Medical School and the Laboratory of Affective Neuroscience, which he directs. And we will be doing other studies to look more deeply into these kinds of relationships. But it's an indication that learning how to bring mindfulness into one's life according to the methodologies that we've developed in what we call mindfulness-based stress reduction can actually lead to differences in the brain that have to do with perception and the filtering of emotions under stressful situations. So that we have choices. We can either, react with rage or terror or, in situations, or we can feel the rage and terror if it's appropriate, but work with them differently, more emotionally intelligently.
That we can handle the fear, not the fear handle ourselves.
Beautifully. That's a beautiful way to put it. That we can handle the fear rather than being at the complete mercy of the fear or of our other emotions.
Yes.
And that in the consequence of that, guess what? Our immune system is healthier. So under stress, the immune system tends to go down, and so you're more likely to get colds, upper respiratory tract infections, or for that matter, be more susceptible to various kinds of physiological imbalance. And if meditation can actually reestablish that balance, bring us back into right inward measure, as we were speaking about, then that in itself is a profound reason for maybe spending a little time every day tuning your instrument before you play in the orchestra. Every orchestra, takes 10, 15 minutes. They tune the instruments. They don't just start the show.
No.
They tune the instruments first. This is a remarkable instrument. We need to learn how to tune it. When we're born, of course, it doesn't come with an instruction manual, how to tune the baby, how to tune your body. So it takes us 30 or 40 years to learn how to do that. The parents, if they don't have any idea, then they don't know how to help the baby to learn that. The babies actually know a lot about it themselves, but bit by bit, I think it's squeezed out of them because it's discouraged. So they are put on the fast track, and they wind up stressed and impatient and hurrying to get to the university or to get a great job or whatever. And childhood is becoming lost in some ways. Another study that we did, which speaks to other aspects of the power of mindfulness, is a study that looked at the question, can we show that the mind can influence a healing process?
Interesting.
And not just any healing process, but I wanted a healing process that we could see with our eyes and photograph, so that we didn't need PET scans or
something tangible.
Exactly, something tangible. So we thought, well, why don't we take a skin disease? Because then we can look at the skin. And there are many skin diseases that are made worse by stress. Psoriasis was the one that we chose. Psoriasis is a disease that the origins of it are fairly obscure. We don't really understand everything about it. There are certain genes that are important in psoriasis that have to do with cell proliferation and the control of the cell replication cycle. So psoriasis is an uncontrolled cell proliferation in the epidermis, but it's not cancer, interestingly enough. The cells grow and they form these very scaly patches that are unsightly and itchy, and it can cover your whole body. But your skin can also be clear at different times. So the skin has the capacity to be normal, but it also has the capacity to lose its normality and become covered with these scaly patches. And stress stimulates psoriasis flare-ups a lot. Okay, and everybody knows that their psoriasis gets worse when they're under stress, either physical stress or emotional stress. So what we decided to do was to take people who are receiving treatment for psoriasis, and the treatment for it is ultraviolet light, like sunlight. So people come to the hospital 3 times a week, and they get what's called phototherapy, where they stand naked in a light box. It's like a telephone booth, but a round one with floor-to-ceiling lights with ultraviolet light. They protect their corneas. Their eyes are covered, and usually the whole head is covered because the ultraviolet could ruin the corneas in the eyes. And then they stand in the light box. The lights come on. They're very hot. They're very powerful. And so they come 3 times a week, and you have to start with very short periods of exposure, and then it grows with time up to about 10 or 15 minutes. So they're standing in the light box with a pillowcase usually over their head, motors blowing air, whirring noises, and so forth. Very unpleasant, stressful. And so we were asked, could we reduce their stress by teaching them some meditation while they're in the light booth? And we said, well, we'll do better than that. Why don't we do a study where we randomize people between 2 groups? One, they just get the light by itself, and just the regular treatment. The other, while they're standing there, we'll make a guided meditation tape. We'll put speakers on top of the booth. When the lights come on, we play the tape, and the person will hear a guided instructions for meditation. And we'll see if the meditators heal at the same rate as the non-meditators. And just for fun, we threw in a visualization. As the tape got longer and the light treatments get longer, they hear more and more of the tape. And we decided we would throw in a visualization where they are visualizing the light slowing down the rapidly growing cells in the epidermis. So they're just intending for the light to do its work, and they're helping, they're participating. I'm concentrating, focusing on the mind, helping the light to do its work of healing. What we found when we photographed the patients and in a very careful way measured the progress of their psoriasis over time, the light treatment is so powerful that if the people stay in the treatment, everybody eventually heals. It's not a cure, but their skin clears, but it comes back again. So it's not a cure. But if the people stay in the with the treatments long enough, pretty much everybody's skin clears. But the meditators were their skin was clearing at 4 times the rate of the non-meditators. 4 times the rate of the non-meditators. And the first time we did this, I didn't believe it, so I did it twice in a much more careful way the second time. It's not a large study in either case, but the statistics jump out at you. In the first case, it was like 25 patients or 27 patients. In the second study, it was 37 patients. We saw the same thing both times, and both times the statistics just jump out at you. Something that the meditators are doing while they're in the light box is increasing the healing of the skin by a factor of 4. And they're not in there all that long. They don't take the tapes home. They're not practicing every day like the people in our stress reduction clinic. They're just doing it for that short period of time.
How incredible.
So after we saw it the second time with a much more stringently designed study, we published this study in 1998. And it really has 4 important implications. One is the mind, something they're doing in that light box is influencing the healing of the skin. So the mind can influence healing and speed it up, in this case by a factor of 4. 2, it's a built-in cost-effectiveness study. If the people's participating in this way can speed up the treatment, then they need fewer treatments. If they need fewer treatments, it's going to cost less. And everybody wants to reduce cost. So it's an example of how participatory medicine and integrating a non-traditional treatment into a traditional treatment can actually reduce the cost of the traditional treatment, because it doesn't cost anything to meditate in the light box.
And increase the healing in time.
Exactly.
Less time, more healing.
The third thing is that the ultraviolet light is itself a risk factor for skin cancer. So that's why people cover their bodies with sunscreen in the summertime, because there is a very real risk of basal cell carcinoma, or skin cancer. That's true in the light box as well. And the light is very powerful. So if you need to be in there less time because you're healing faster, it reduces your risk of cancer. And then the fourth thing is that this has to be affecting the mind has to be affecting things all the way down to the level of gene expression and cellular metabolism, because that's how the healing happens. So something that the mind is doing, whether it's the meditation, whether it's the visualization, who knows, but something, even expectations or beliefs, it doesn't matter. They're all aspects of mind. Something that they're doing is systematically influencing the skin. So this is an experimental system that we can now do a lot of different things with to analyze what is going on at the level of the genes in the epidermis, what is going on at the level of in the inflammatory response, what is going on at the level of the cellular changes and replication changes. And the interesting thing, I guess this is the fifth conclusion, is that while psoriasis is an uncontrolled cell proliferation, it's not cancerous. But it has certain genes that are affected in psoriasis that are close cousins to genes that are affected in basal cell carcinoma. So they are like related diseases in some way. If the mind can influence uncontrolled cell proliferation in psoriasis, maybe it can influence uncontrolled cell proliferation in cancer.
Interesting.
So these are all future studies that might be possible. But again, it's evidence from a randomized clinical trial that, and in this case 2 of them, so that we can really believe the results, that what you do for yourself makes a difference, and that the mind has the power to heal. So this is just one piece of evidence among many in the new field of mind-body medicine. It's beginning to, develop more and more the argument that people should not be the passive recipients of medical care, but we should participate fully in it ourselves.
Makes all the difference, because traditional medicine, it's the patient's over there and the doctor just makes what he wants, and patient doesn't do anything.
Exactly. It's a not being passive
real
anymore,
change
but being active. And then you could actually, our patients, they come to the hospital because of their suffering, because they're in pain and so forth, but they leave the hospital feeling like, almost like, this is better than school or better than going to the university. I've learned something about life that's not just about my body, it's not just about healing, it's about passion for life, it's about knowing more who I am. So it's kind of like a catapulting of people into more of a sense of authenticity and freedom of for new possibilities in their own lives. It's very, very exciting. It's like a lot of people feel like they learned more in this 8-week course in the hospital than they learned in 4 years of university or something like that. More important, fundamental things about what's essential, what's relevant to their own lives. To me, that is, I feel a tremendous amount of gratitude for the opportunity to work with people in this way and to just watch how, given the right circumstances and conditions, people's genius really takes off and takes hold and just grows, and everybody does it differently. So the idea is not to do it somebody else's way or John Kabat-Zinn's way. The idea is to find your way.
What would you recommend to people just to do it? How every day? How many minutes?
Yeah, well, ideally, it's very hard to go from, just sort of seeing this on television.
Yes,
to like, well, what do I do when the television program is over? So that's one reason I write books and I make guided meditation tapes, and my colleagues do as well. So that, with our patients, for instance, we give them a tape in the first class, and the homework is you plug in the tape and you just listen. Do what it says to do on the tape. And again, it's not just listening. We say it's doing whatever it says to do on the tape. And we guide them in various meditative practices, which have to do with dropping into stillness, with feeling the sensations in the body, with riding on the waves of the breath, with watching your thoughts come and go, and so forth. And we ask them to do that 45 minutes a day, 6 days a week. And in the 4th week of the program, they get a second tape. So they get 2 tapes. These tapes can be very useful. My books are also about how to learn to use meditation in a real way, not in some kind of affected way, but in a very real, practical, commonsensical way, without having to become a Buddhist or without having to become an Asian, or without having to become anything, simply being who you already are. So those things are available. We have tapes in Spanish that my colleague Fernando de Torrijos made. So there are ways that people can get this stuff. One of my books was translated into Spanish. I'm hopeful that the others will be as well. The books and the tapes can be useful vehicles, but ultimately you don't need the books and the tapes. What you got is already available. You have everything you need. You have your body, you have your breath, you have your mind, and you have time. While you're alive, you have your present moments. So all you need to do really is to start letting life be the teacher and see if you can be present moment by moment for more of it. I sometimes give audiences homework to make that point. I say, well, the next time you're in the shower, for example, check and see if you're in the shower. Because you might not be. You might be driving to work, or you might be having a conversation, you might be in a meeting. Meanwhile, you're forgetting that I'm in the shower. A beautiful way to introduce this into your life is when you wake up in the morning, don't jump out of bed so quickly. See if you have to, set the alarm for 5 minutes earlier, and lie in bed for 5 minutes and do this lying down and just feel the breath moving in and out of your body. And feel your whole body as if your whole body was just lying here breathing. Noticing thoughts going on in the mind, and let them come and go like clouds in the sky. Even if they're anxious thoughts like, oh my God, I got to wake up the children, or oh my God, I got to do this, or oh my God, I got to do that. Take the 5 minutes and just allow yourself to drop into being. No doing. If you wake up 5 minutes earlier, it's free time. If you wake up 10 minutes earlier, it's even more free time. But really, being in the present moment is stepping outside of time altogether. So even 5 minutes, infinite number of moments.
How interesting.
Infinite number of moments. Then when you go to bed at night, see if you can take 5 minutes before you to just bring your awareness back to your body, bring your awareness back to your breathing, and just ride on the waves of your breath. Many people actually go to sleep that way, and if they have a hard time going to sleep, that's a powerful way to drop into stillness. So the first moment you wake up in the morning, and the last moment you are awake at night, and that can kind of create a seamless continuity where instead of feeling like I'm the victim of my life and one more day I have to get up, I have to go to work, I have to do this, I have to do that, where before we get out of bed we're already anxious, we're already stressed, we're already driven. Say, no, this is beautiful. This is the first day of the rest of my life. Right now, right here, I'm just fully here, fully awake. Then maybe you go into the bathroom, you brush your teeth mindfully. Then you check and see if you're in the shower when you're in the shower. Get dressed mindfully. When you wake up your children, that's a beautiful thing to do. If you have small children, you wake them up. Be aware of how you wake them up, what tone of voice you're using, how you touch them. Because it's a new opportunity for them. It's a new day. And we don't have to teach them to be stressed before they get out of bed. That can make a huge change in the quality of the family, in the quality of the day. Don't shout to people when you're leaving in the morning, Sit down and don't read the newspaper, watch television in the morning. We start to reclaim our moments. When we're eating around the table, let's be with each other instead of having the television on or something like that. Little things like that can really help enormously in reclaiming our lives, And then people want to know, well, how will I know if it's working? Will I notice it? You may be the last person to notice it. Other people might say, well, what's happening with you? I mean, you seem so much calmer. Patients in our stress reduction clinic often report these kinds of stories that somebody at work will say, you just seem different. You seem a little calmer. You're not getting so bent out of shape. I said, well, I don't know. Maybe it's this stress reduction program I'm taking. Maybe it's the meditation. The children might notice it, because if they sort of make a lot of demands on you and you're usually reactive and you get angry and stuff like that, and you stop doing that, they're very surprised. Whoa, what's going on with Mama? She's not doing the usual thing. We push her buttons so she goes, ah! And all of a sudden she's not going, ah, so much. That's very interesting. The children go, oh. And so you can play with them in ways by not falling into their expectations so easily. Like, oh, I can handle this 20 different ways, not just one way.
That's fantastic.
There's a beautiful poem by Juan Ramón Jiménez. Again, I can't say it in Spanish, but I'll say it in English. that speaks to this subtlety of, like, how will I know when things are different, when things are new, when there's some result from the meditation? See, the meditation's not trying to get a result. It's allowing things to be as they actually are. It's not trying to force any kind of result. The freedom, the relaxation, the insight, the love all come from letting go, dropping into the present moment, not trying to fix anything or make anything happen or get anywhere. So the poem goes like this. I have a feeling that my boat has struck down there in the depths against a great thing, and nothing happens. Nothing. Silence. Waves. Nothing happened? Or has everything happened? And we are standing here quietly in the new life.
Fantastic.
Sometimes we're not sensitive to our own deepest changes. The meditation practice, especially if one keeps it up, you keep weaving the parachute, you keep staying with the breath, you keep coming back to the breath. You do this day in, day out, month in, month out, at your own pace, in whatever way you like, more like a dance than like work, more like fun and play than like work. It gives your life back to yourself. And then you begin to notice that, yes, maybe your boat has struck down there in the depths against a great thing. Maybe that great thing is the core of your being. Maybe that great thing is what is truly sacred in your life. Maybe that great thing is are these hidden dimensions of yourself that you've been too busy to be in touch with. And maybe we are already standing quietly in the new life.
It's interesting. Because it's like you speak of a crisis, no? That makes the opportunity for a new life.
Exactly. And that crisis, sometimes we're best in crises. And so, people don't come to the stress reduction clinic when they're having a great time.
No.
They come when they've been in an automobile accident, or they come when somebody's died in their family, or they come when they have had a diagnosis of breast cancer, or of prostate cancer, or of colon cancer, or they come when they can't function at work anymore, or they have high blood pressure, or their stomach can't digest anything because it's churning all the time.
It's an extreme
or
situation.
They hurt their back lifting something at work, and they have neck pain or back pain, or they're just panicky all the time. So, yeah, the extreme situations are what get people into the stress reduction program. And we've had people with heart attacks or with cancer say, I've come to see that heart attack as a blessing. Because it didn't kill me, and it woke me up to what's important. And I am living my life in a new way. Thanks to the meditation practice, thanks to mindfulness, thanks to seeing new possibilities that were always there, and I never saw them before. Just the way you don't see your breath until you can't get your breath. One breath that you choke on, one breath you can't take in, and everything else falls away. Your taxes, your job, even your desire for your children to do well in life. At some point, you can't get that one breath in. That's the only thing that will be important to you. And yet we live with it every day without paying any attention to it. What the great meditation traditions and the yogis have really given to us is a kind of a message. And the message is this. The breath can be an incredible ally in a certain kind of interior work that can help us come back to who we actually are. So the breath is not just the breath. It is what the great Sufi poet Kabir called the tiniest house of time. So I am the breath inside the breath. And you will find me in the tiniest house of time. Well, what is the tiniest house of time? It's the present moment, the tiniest house of time. And if we are not living our present moments, then you might say we're busy dying. If we are living our present moments, then we're busy being born. It's all a question of attitude. I think it was Albert Einstein that said, there are two ways to look at reality. You can look at reality like nothing is a miracle, or you can look at reality that everything is a miracle. I choose the latter. Einstein looked at the world like it was a miracle, and he used to talk about the cosmic religious feeling that came from understanding the lawfulness of the universe. In the meditative traditions, there's another kind of lawfulness. It's what's sometimes called dharma, or sometimes called the Tao. The deep looking into one's own interior illuminates a certain kind of lawfulness. If you grasp onto things that you want, you are going to create suffering. That's like the first law of thermodynamics of the mind. You cling to something, you're going to create suffering. Whether it's a pleasant thing that you cling to by clinging to it, or whether it's an unpleasant thing that you have aversion to, so you push it away.
That's because you are linked to desire, and desire brings suffering.
Exactly. I mean, that's one way to put it, is the Buddhists say that desire brings suffering. Another way to put it is that the freedom from desire is already freedom. That doesn't mean that you can't want anything. It's not the wanting that's a problem. It's that when we don't know that the wanting is inexhaustible, that wanting is totally inexhaustible. So then we are caught. We are like prisoners. It has a stranglehold on us. We are addicted to our desires. So an addict is not free.
No.
Even if they have pleasant feelings. You know, if you shoot something up in your veins, you might have this wonderful feeling, but you can't be free, because it goes away, and then you need it again, and it destroys the whole rest of the fabric of your life. But the freedom that comes from letting go of the desires, the fewer things you need to force the world to give you, the freer you are. Then the irony is, the more you don't try to force the world to give to you, the more it's free for the taking. So I like to think that most of us are far richer than we actually realize. We are incredibly rich. We have bodies, we have minds that work, we have the breath, we have the possibility of living our lives without being killed in the next moment, I mean, for most of us. And yet we don't take advantage of those kinds of things. So to actually be in the present moment affords the opportunity to see the miraculous in everything, see the sacred in everything, come to terms with things as they are in a way that has authenticity. And that's my definition of healing, to come to terms, coming to terms with things as they are. So that if you're a day away from dying, you can be healed. Or you can go to your death miserable, being angry at everything that didn't happen or that happened that you didn't want to happen. Or you can come to some kind of peace with it. But why wait till you die for that? Why not
start now?
Start now. And then you see each out-breath is a little mini dying. Each in-breath is a little mini being born. And the challenge is to continue to be aware of that and to see that as a way of staying fresh, a way of staying creative, a way of feeding your own imagination, a way of seeing with eyes that aren't so tainted, aren't so conditioned that they don't see anything. They only see what they think. They only see what they are looking for. So we say in English, you can't see the forest for the trees.
For the trees,
you know, or to begin to sort of try to see with Claude Monet's eyes. When you look at light reflected on water, can you really see the light? And can you see the clouds, or can you see the flowers, or can you see the insects? Can you see the light in your child's eyes? Can you see somebody you've lived with for 30 or 40 years and see them as if for the first time? That is seeing with love. That is seeing with affectionate attention. That is seeing with open-heartedness. Why is it so hard for us to do that? Well, it's partly because we've been conditioned to run on automatic pilot all the time. And we practice mindlessness a great deal at a time. The more we practice
That's
it, the better we get.
Mm.
So
It's a very subtle vision what you talk
very, except that, our experience is that thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people in the United States are doing this kind of thing. And not just in the United States, but really all around the world.
Every
Easterners, Westerners, it's no longer some kind of lunatic fringe.
No,
You
no,
think,
no,
the meditation,
no.
the meditators, they're just
No.
crazy people. Bankers, corporate presidents, foundation presidents, senators and congressmen, Olympic athletes, National Basketball Association stars, Michael Jordan. These folks meditate. They do yoga. Why? Because it feeds some of the deepest aspects of what it means to be human.
How interesting.
Great adventure.
Yes.
And it just keeps going. As long as your breath is going, it just keeps going.
I read very interesting that you recommend to teachers to make long periods of silence. Could you talk us a little bit about what you think?
Teachers in elementary school?
No, in this subject, in meditation.
Oh. Well, for instance, in the psoriasis study, people ask me what's on the tape. And a lot of the times what I say to them is, what's on the tape, because how do you get people to heal 4 times as fast? There must be some kind of magic on the tape. I say, well, what's on the tape is silence. And then some instructions for how to use the silence. That's where the meditation, the visualization come in. But so all of this is about, in some way, learning to listen to silence, learning to be a little more still. When we are always talking, when the mind is always chattering, it's very hard to make room even for conversation. So we do encourage our teachers to stretch out the stretches of silence. And as we go through the 8 weeks, more and more, we just sit together and nothing needs to be said. And everybody's working, doing the interior work of non-doing, of being present, of not trying to get anywhere else, not trying to fix anything, of just, say, being in one's body, experiencing the scent, the aroma, the flavor of the bloom of this moment of your life. Whether it's a pleasant scent, an unpleasant scent, a neutral scent, not so important. And that will change from moment to moment. But the mind, the heart that can hold the whole of it, that's almost like independent of the ups and downs, the details of life. And so we can choose to see life in its fullness, or to see everything as empty and as meaningless. That choice is Einstein's choice. Nothing's miraculous, everything's miraculous. How do you want to live your life? I mean, basically it's asking, do you want to be miserable or do you want to be happy? The Dalai Lama talks a lot about happiness. Happiness is not something you go out and you get by meditating or by doing a lot of shopping or by having your kids graduate from school, although all of those things can give you a momentary feeling of happiness. But happiness is really something much more profound. It's really being comfortable in your own skin, moment by moment. So it's like the stillness underneath the waves. Happiness is actually here all the time. We think when we're up here, caught up in I have to get happy, in order to be happy, I have to have this car, this wife, get rid of this wife, get a new car, whatever it is, this watch, this degree, when I'm older, or I was happy when I was younger, but now that I'm old, I can't be happy. All of those nonsense thoughts, I mean, they just don't make any sense, but they can construct altogether a reality if we're not aware of it. But if we let go of that, and we look in between those thoughts, and we listen very carefully, and we see the thoughts as clouds and storms in the mind, whether they're positive or negative, whatever, then we come to realize, the awareness itself is happiness. That my body itself is happiness. It's an experience of very, very deep self-recognition. It's like recognizing that if anything is sacred, then everything is sacred. If everything is sacred, then you are sacred. If you are sacred, then there is really no problem. So you're at home here, you're at home now, you're at home wherever you go. There you are. Let's experience that. It doesn't take any time. It doesn't take any effort, really. It takes letting things that are unnecessary fall away. The great poet Kabir said, just, how did it go? Just set aside all thought of unnecessary things and stand firm in that which you are. Just let it set aside all thoughts of unnecessary things and stand firm in that which you are.
Fantastic.
And it's simple, you know, so people think, oh, well, if I meditate for 20 years, then I'll get somewhere. No, it's about right here, right now. And then if you fall off meditating, whenever you come back to it, guess what? It's the present moment. So it's infinitely forgiving, infinitely reassuring, infinitely optimistic, infinitely, you know, the happiness is right here, right now. Healing is right here, right now. Stillness is right here, right now. And you are right here, right now. But if you don't know it, you're like Mr. Duffy, living a short distance from the body, a short distance from your true nature, and you could spend your whole life trying to get there. And ironically, you've been here the whole time. That's what I mean. That's what I mean by coming home.
Okay, that's important for people. Well, John, thanks a lot for being with us, and thanks a lot for all you've given us, and
well,
thank you for being here.
It's my total pleasure, and I feel like in doing this, I actually represent all of my colleagues from the Stress Reduction Clinic and the Center for Mindfulness. Much of this work is done by a wonderful group of people that I work with who each teach in their own way. We're all teaching together. And so it really is a pleasure for me to be here, for me to be in Argentina and Latin America for the first time in my life. And so I've just felt an enormous affinity for this culture and the passion of this culture and the ways in which this culture really recognizes family and recognizes the importance of relationships. And so it's been a wonderful learning experience for me.
Okay.
And so it's been a pleasure for me to chat with you.
Thanks a lot, and thanks a lot also for helping so many people in such how do you say in pain, in suffering. That's so difficult.
Well, we're all in the same boat.
In their name.
Thank you. Well, thank you. We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat. So, you know, it is my delight to be able to make some kind of contribution to people actually realizing that it's their work to do, and if I can be of some help in the process, wonderful.
You are usually. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.